Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to be talking about the map MegaRandom, which by its own in-game description asks if you've ever dreamed of an endlessly unpredictable map where anything is possible and nothing is guaranteed. Multiply it by 10 and this is what you get. Of course, it's become a staple in the map pool and is now one of the most played maps in Aoe2, regularly voted in by the adventurous when given as an option, having both many fans and detractors. The main question I want to talk about here though is how random is it really? The simplest technical answer is not at all. The map seed is generated in some pseudo-random way, and once you have a map seed, there's only one way for the map to generate, which is entirely deterministic, though admittedly that's an annoying and uninteresting answer. To get more at the heart of the question, we're going to look at how a MegaRandom map is generated, in not an overly technical way, but enough to pull back the curtain and give a better idea of what sorts of things it can do and what the limitations are, which are unfortunately not as sprawling as that in-game description makes it sound. In fact, you may have noticed very similar looking generations appear regularly if you played enough times, and even after 10 games, there's technically about a 2/3 chance you'll swear you've seen a very similar looking map appear twice over those games. I do want to caution up front, initially it's going to sound like it's far more predictable than advertised and might start off disappointing, but I think as we go deeper, you'll come out with a greater appreciation for the map and the hundreds or even thousands of unique gameplay experiences it can offer. Now, if you're anything like me, the first time I encountered the map, knowing nothing about the technicals of map generation and scripting, I assumed somewhat naively it would work like this. There would be a % chance of a river on the map, a % chance of a lake, a big hill, a big pit, large or small islands, forests along the edges, etc., and would randomly pick some combination of those features. And then through the black box of map scripting, would combine them into one single map, with anything you can imagine being possible, from incredibly boring to overloaded with features. In reality, this is about as far away as you can get from how it actually generates the basic map shape. Instead, MegaRandom begins by selecting from one of 45 pre-designed templates, which is still a lot, but means you can easily get to the point you start to recognize some of them, with, as I said, a 2/3 chance you'll get at least one map show up twice over any 10-game span. I told you this was going to start off by sounding a little disappointing at first. What's more, several of those 45 templates are very similar to existing standard maps. Map 7, for example, is basically Highlands, Map 9 is an often ice-free version of Scandinavia, Map 23 is Acropolis, or something very similar, and Map 27 is basically Mediterranean. So at the least, several have a very familiar look, and feel like other standard maps at a glance. Now, that said, many of the others can be quite novel. You have a sort of crossroads map, which I like, that is very distinct for having forests along the edges, along with shallows, encouraging a very spread out sort of base. Another is like an inverse Acropolis, where each player is in a pit, with the rest of the map having tons of elevation change and a special cracked terrain that causes buildings to take 20% more damage when attacked. Then there's the obviously named Pokeball map, with a big forest in the middle surrounded by shallows, and in fact, mixing water and land in interesting ways is a common feature in the MegaRandom templates. Among the most creative has a large starting plateau with both players, reaching down on steep sides to your only sources of wood. The middle area has gold in it every time, but interestingly, there's never any stone outside your initial base, just as a quirk of the map. You may recognize a few of these templates from your own games, and you can see how it gives a subtle advantage to people who play it often. Now, fixating on that 45 map number though, I think glosses over one big layer of variability, which is the map's season, as it's called internally in the code, or maybe more accurately, I would call it the map's climate. Most maps have a chance of being any of the major climates, whether it be desert, alpine, frozen, tropical, etc., which can have more than just aesthetic implications. A central lake, for example, could be deep water, allowing for fishing in one generation, or in a different generation be ice, having a big impact on how things play out. In this map generation, for example, outside of each player's starting square, you have tiny islands of trees with scraps of gold and stone on them. The rest of the map is quicksand, which is completely unbuildable. So how would you ever get a good farming economy going here? Well, it would probably take a lot of chopping. The same map template, but with a Southeast Asian climate, has plenty of area for farms, as well as the potential for fishing and demo rafts, as all of that unbuildable quicksand area is now instead multifunctional. Is it really fair to call these the same map, even if technically they're both map template number 44? I'm not so sure about that. In addition, the majority of maps have a 10% chance of a nomad start, and at least one has 2 starting town centers. again giving a bit different experience and pushing players outside their regular build orders. So to recap so far, when you start a MegaRandom map, the game picks a seed number, uses that to randomly pick one of 45 templates, picks a random climate for that map, which may or may not radically change something about how the map is played, and then sometimes rolls for a nomad start. But it's not done yet. Once it has the lay of the land figured out, it then adds in trees and resources. Now, if you've played MegaRandom before, you know it loves to mess around with resources. The size and number of smaller wood clumps scattered on the map seems predetermined on the ones I looked at the code for, so that part is pretty consistent, I assume for balance reasons. On the other hand, your starting gold and stone are very much random within reason. In fact, generally there's only a 10% chance of having the standard 7+4+4 gold piles that you get on Arabia, with various other distributions possible being either more or less. The extra gold and stone piles on the map and how large those clumps are then completely independent of what's in your starting base. This is true for each resource, giving you almost any combination you can think of between high and low gold, stone, and food distribution, though with food specifically having a fairly generous minimum to make the early game playable, and especially with nomad starts, I've seen it roll some very large amounts of food. With the map setup then, MegaRandom adds another independent layer of randomness with starting buildings and scouts. The likelihood of buildings to appear seems to be dependent on the map itself, and if the map is considered to have limited or lots of available space around the town center. But especially in an open map, you have a decent chance for a free starting building. This could include any type of tower, including up to 3 watchtowers. You can also start with a wall around your base, every once in a while get a free castle, up to 3 houses, a combination of a feudarea with 4 houses to help your housing cap, a free market, siege workshop or other military building, a monastery, 3 extra villagers 10% of the time, a fishing or transport ship, and up to 5 farms. In fact, on average, you have not too far off a 50-50 chance of something extra being given to you. I also saw an interesting note in the script as well, about a chance to start with a lumber camp VLDL man, which I assume is a typo for VMDL, or a town center surrounded by berries, though I haven't seen those before in MegaRandom, and they don't appear to have been actually implemented. Personally, I'd love to see them lean more into this, and a VMDL man as a scout would be pretty fun, given it's the fastest unit in the game. What do you think, VMDL?
Now that's a good idea. I would really like to see that.
But speaking of which, of course, in addition to random buildings, you can also get unusual scouts. You have a roughly 10% of getting 2 scouts at the start, and a 20% chance to start with a horse or camel. Usually just 1, but it can be up to 4. There's also a 3% chance you don't get a scout at all, and have to rough it Age of Empires 1 style. In very rare cases as well, you have a small chance of a militia, spearman, or skirmisher as your scout, with no other units unfortunately being possible. Though personally, I'd love to see the siege tower added to this roster. All this together means while it's not truly as random as at least I naively thought years ago with combining random features and making anything possible, to say it's just 45 maps I think is underselling the variability. To illustrate again, let's focus on one map, number 42, which we can nickname the Torus or Donut. 76% of the time, it's a ring of land surrounded by mangrove forests. It's an interesting hybrid map with an inner and outer lake to contest, with a safe land bridge in between. Theoretically, you could focus just on land or contest either or both of the separate water regions. So there's a lot of ways this could play out, even before considering how much gold and stone there is on the map. The other 24% of the time though, it's generated as a desert map, where the usual outline is replaced with quicksand, and the middle and outside are solid forest. Suddenly, it looks more like Oasis, though the looped quicksand tracks that replace the usual generation shoreline means it's actually impossible to wall either side. Now it's a permanently open land map, and in this particular generation only gives 2 relics with very little gold and stone outside your starting town. This particular generation though then feels enough pity to give you 6 starting villagers and 2 camels. To just call this the same map as the prior one, I think undersells how much variation in gameplay you can have. Again, despite both being technically map number 42. Of course, having no idea what kind of map you're getting into, naturally Mongols are by far the most popular choice, given their better scouting, and with players no doubt hoping to capitalize on a very hunt-heavy generation. A couple of other popular picks are Franks and Britons, as always, as well as Lithuanians for that reliable food at the start. Now, I'd be remiss here if I didn't at least quickly mention Zetnus before we finish. He's a legendary modder in the community in his own right, and not only does he have a 50-minute long video re-rolling variations of each of the 45 template maps, but he's created his very own HyperRandom map on the mod workshop. This is what the more adventurous Secretly Wish MegaRandom was, giving even more variety in maps and scouts. There is a light version that tones things back, but the traditional version gives you not just things like a battering ram to scout, but even sometimes gives each player a wonder they have to defend or they lose the game, while even changing how many resources there are in animals, mines, and trees to be more or less than usual. It definitely takes the whole premise of MegaRandom to a new level, and if this is up your alley, I checked that out on the workshop. So to wrap up and answer the question of how random is MegaRandom, I have to admit after looking at it, it's a combination of more and less than I thought, with a huge number of potential combinations possible, but all built off a limited number of templates. If you're curious, I attached a link below showing a representative example of all 45 map generations that someone put together, which might be helpful if you want to leg up on the ladder and see if you can commit a few to memory. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.